Sure. Hello, y'all. I am Michael Meredith, and I'm happy to be talking to you here today. And the reason is I just kind of want to tell you all about the Creator, what Jesus does for me, and how you can get happier in your life. There's no point in not being happy. I mean, what's the point in having a bad life when you can have a good life, right? I mean, what do you guys think about that? Sound good? Oh, yeah. All you got to do is clear your thoughts and get rid of the bad ones and say, what do I need them negative thoughts for? I mean, I wouldn't say throw it all under the bus, but just let it be like a rudder, you know, tiny little part that steers the whole ship. That's your past and memory. And what your Creator does for you is the one that fills the sails. And I want to show you exactly what my Creator has done for me and for you. He's created this just marvelous world with all of these delightful things in it, every little part put together in such a magnificently complex way that all of these people that say that it all arose somehow in a big bang, it all came together and blew up and became everything we see now, they are absolute nutcases because they want to leave the Creator out. And after all, who ever heard of something coming out of nothing? That's impossible. We don't even know if nothing exists. Much less has anyone ever seen something come out of nothing, much less something so complicated as all. That's insanity. So what did your Creator do for you? He made all of this crazy, wonderful stuff just for you. And I have it on good authority that He would do that again just for you, just for each and every one of us, even as we know Jesus would die on the cross for each and every one of us all over again, just to bring us into heaven, because we are that dear of a part of His heart, that's how much He loves us. And for those of you who never heard about Jesus and go, I hate Jesus, well, why do you hate a man who 2,000 years later is remembered largely for the love He gave to people and the good He did for people? I mean, think about that. Why would you hate a guy like that? That is clearly satanic. You know, that's Lucifer who rebelled against God and hates Him. And that's in all of our hearts too. And Lucifer just pushes the right buttons and there you are. But complete scientific proof is the Shroud of Turin studies in, I think, 1978, 1980. Huge amount of scientific work. And they absolutely proved that a human hand could never have created this, what they call an information document. Extremely complex interactions of medical science, history, physics. This thing is enormously amazing. It was created by some kind of an energy source we don't even know. So in other words, Jesus, when He was resurrected, was evidently levitated, and the two pieces of the cloth were also levitated, one under Him and one on top of Him, pulled tight, and then the image was made, some kind of a magical, godlike, supernatural Xerox machine printed right into the surface, etched into the surface of the fibers, this kind of image that you can't even see until you're 30 feet away. So how could you paint it? It's a photographic image in reverse. Photography wasn't invented until 1850 or so. That's impossible. Someone in 1500, they're saying Leonardo da Vinci or someone created it. That is nuts. It was not painted. It's impossible to say that. They're nuts. The history of it definitely goes right back to when some of the apostles took it over to Odessa. It was called the Cloth of Odessa, given to a Christian king. And then somehow, this is another miracle within a miracle. This piece of cloth survived every kind of fire, every kind of warfare, every kind of flooding and damage, and should have rotted to pieces years ago. That is a tablecloth, a Jewish tablecloth that Joseph of Arimathea purchased on his way out, I think, of the fish gate that went up towards the Mount of Golgotha. I think that's what the names of them were anyway. On his way back from, not Herod, but what's his name, the Roman guy. Got permission to take his body down. Bought this tablecloth. So here's this rich guy that buys a real high-end sort of tablecloth, very common, on the way out, and just luckily before they all shut down for Passover, and then goes galloping up the hill. He's also riding a horse, which I think was somewhat forbidden by the Jews, That's kind of interesting. So Jesus was resurrected and given a resurrected body, or he created it himself, you can say. I think the reason he did that is many levels, but one of them that a lot of people don't stop and consider is that he's showing us the kind of resurrected body we get. You know, God is going to give us all a resurrected body when we die. We die in this life, we die into a more perfect life. And that is not, love of death. Quite the opposite. This holy heaven that he's giving us. So many people have come back from these near-death experiences. Psychologists cannot explain it in any way, people who study it, except to say that, well, there is some kind of heaven we go to when we die, because it cuts right across cultures and time periods and everything. I mean, that's an amazing study in itself. But what he's showing us when he got resurrected, completely proven by the Shroud of Turin being his burial cloth, and all the information is right in there, every little bit of the descriptions in the New Testament. So you go, okay, well, how are you going to discredit the New Testament in any way if this cloth perfectly represents what I think all four of the gospel writers described as the way Jesus died? So he is resurrecting himself. He's got this fabulous body where he can be in 5 or 10 different places at once, where he can work incredible miracles and appear and disappear whenever he wants to, where he still is an incredibly compassionate man, incredibly compassionate, but still does not put up with BS in anybody. You know, he calls them out for being completely in error. And that's what Jesus is like. I had a picture on my wall for a while. It was really nice. I call it the Chuck Norris Jesus. There's Jesus in heaven, and he's got his arms out to like welcome you. And there's all these angels around him, completely beautiful angels around him, but he kind of looks like Chuck Norris. So I call him the Chuck Norris Jesus. And I mean, what I mean is, you know, you can lie all you want to, but that doesn't, not going to impress him, not one bit. So, you know, you kind of go where you want to go, and some people like Saul Alinsky, beloved of Obama and Clinton, don't ask me why, in his book, Rules for Radicals, he dedicates his book to Satan, and when he died on his deathbed, he said he wanted to go to hell, and his book includes perfect textbook description of how communists should take over a country, and literally, that's what's been happening to our country, the US of A, for quite some time. And this was perfectly predicted about 400 years ago by a nun in what is now Ecuador, is now the Republic of Ecuador. At the time, it was a colony. She predicted numerous things that came true. All of the things in her life were completely documented by numerous people at different levels of society, very respected people of every kind, hard to deny. All the miracles are right there. All the facts are right there. No one can deny it, not even my own Catholic Church, which has taken at the moment, unfortunately, a penchant towards Satanism, one would have to say, by studying, you know, how they're like letting pedophile priests go free, you know, and stuff like that. Those guys should be in jail or just get rid of them. I mean, honestly, any kind of a pedo, I don't care who he is. Got to do something with that evil stuff, which is what Sharia law promotes. And I wasn't going to talk about politics, but Sharia law is an evil political system that's being promoted by the very same communists who permeate our culture at the time, especially at the level of the, shall we call them, the liberals. Unfortunately, conservatives tend to be more towards God. Liberals tend to be more towards hating Christians. I mean, look it up. Bernie and all those folks have been saying stuff like that. That's evil. But getting back to the good part, you know, the good part is, hey, you know, you want to go to heaven, you play your cards right, you do your best, you know, and you will get to heaven, and that's the important thing. You just have to keep the right moral and ethical code as best as you can. You just have to really want the bright light of God and Jesus. You got to decide for yourself what you want to be in this life, because you know, you will become what you want. In other words, if you want money, just money and cars and beautiful women or beautiful boys or whatever, you know, I guess you kind of get that. I mean, you don't think of that as being hell because it's so pleasurable now, but, you know, from God's point of view, You know, you were born into this life with nothing. You will go out of this life with nothing. And I'm sorry, a lot of you cultists who honestly believe that you will take everything you gain in this life with you, you won't. Why? Because if you go with God, you will get this complete new start that's so perfect, you will not desire a single thing. Nothing. And you can just look up exactly what all these people, including my wife, says about near-death experiences. You know, just a kind of a perfect state where you don't have a single earthly concern. There's no possible drunkenness or drugs or sex experience or anything that can remotely compete with the beautiful feeling of bliss. Perfect bliss and intelligent bliss, because all your intelligence is even more functional in this state. And that's what I wanted to tell you guys about today. Sorry if I'm running this camera a little crooked, but you know, I'm just so busy thinking, and it's so much fun, and this has actually been a great relief for me. So I appreciate you. If you are listening to me, I really thank you for giving me this opportunity to clear my thoughts and decide that I just rather think good thoughts, you know, than dark thoughts. I tend to get caught up in people who've done me wrong and, you know, the evils in the world and all that. I mean, just like a lot of people do. And it's a shame, you know, none of us should be that way. It's a horrible shame. You know, God did not design us to be that way. He designed us to be altruistic and perfect. And if we have an imperfect world, that has led us into imperfection. And if we have literally these little dark spirits, these internet trolls of the spiritual universe, throwing thoughts into our brain like a basketball player would throw a ball through a hoop, if we have that going on all the time, yeah, it's just one of those things you got to deal with. So, you know, realize a lot of those thoughts are not your own. Some little Satan who's been picking on you your whole life and picking on your whole family going back multi-generations, so he knows how to, you know, get responses. Then you really can help to conquer that by understanding it. And it's a good plan. You know, God wanted us to be intelligent and know what's going on. Oh, isn't that a cool little, oh, that's a reflection of the tree. Now, at the moment, it is like very early spring. Today is March 1. There are buds on the trees. This is Northern Virginia, right near Washington, D.C. And I'm really hoping spring comes along. That's going to be really nice. So, anyway, in conclusion, if there is a conclusion, I'm pretty sure there's never a conclusion, because I was thinking about infinity when I came up here, and infinity is an entirely different subject, but I'd like you to think just two clear thoughts for a moment. If you go into the infinitely small, the infinitely tiny, that's where God created the whole universe, from the infinitely tiny, because infinity cannot be subdivided, so therefore the infinitely small is the exact same as infinitely large. From a human perspective, I think that's a way to understand God's perspective, because if you were an infinite being and you created a finite world, all of the talk that we normally talk in order to help explain this stuff would be meaningless, because time did not exist and he invented time. We all know that when time ends, the whole world like dissolves. I don't know if it dissolves into gray powder or it just ceases to exist, who knows. But God created it. He can destroy it any way he wants, just like any artist can destroy his artwork if it's not pleasing to him. I mean, all this talk about God being cruel to do things like that, that's nonsense, and that's generally a kind of a Satanist person who doesn't really believe in God anyway. So why should you listen to them? So infinity, infinitely small, is the same thing as the infinitely large. There is no difference, because infinity cannot be subdivided. And for you mathematicians out there, since that's very mathematical and I love math, consider for a moment that zero, you know, we could call it a number zero on the number line. How do you explain zero? Where does it exist in the universe? How can you say that zero even exists? That's a human construct, but without it, we don't have the number line. as far as I know, we don't have mathematics, and we don't have any of our science, because mathematics underlies all of our sciences. Throw physics out the door, simply because without math, you don't have physics. You don't have any of our sciences. So how can you have zero that doesn't exist anywhere in the universe? And does zero represent infinity? Think about that for a minute. If it does represent infinity, if zero represents infinity, you could just put the infinity symbol there right on the number line instead of zero. And then what does it really mean? How do you go from infinity to the number 1? I mean, isn't zero kind of like a black hole, you know, which the physicists say is infinite, because the calculations show that the black hole is infinite. And they don't like that, because physicists don't like infinity. Mathematicians love infinity. They're just obsessed. So I guess I'm more of a mathematician than a physicist in that sense. Let's focus in on that and watch the camera really wiggle around. Sorry I put so much science in here. A lot of you guys probably don't like science, and that's too bad, because I think science is just wonderful. And instead of boring you even more, I think I'll shut off. And once again, thank you all for coming by and giving me this opportunity to run a 16-minute movie through my cute little pocket camera, made by Sony, costing me $100 only, as refurbished. And it's been a lot of fun playing with this camera. And again, thank you all for coming by. I really appreciate it, and I hope you got as much out of it as I did, because boy, when I get all these thoughts out, it just really helps me. So I would encourage anyone to do this. Just talk about what the Creator did for you, how He give you a great family, how He give you a nice house to live in, food to eat, and beautiful thoughts to think, which is maybe the most important thing He gave us. And so I bid you a fond adieu on March 1, 2018. I've been alive 62 years now. That ain't too bad. I survived that long. Guess I was doing something right. And I'll talk to you all again. Bye-bye.